Yeah. I got this print on my test. Yesterday I put peroxide on it. I just put some more a minute ago. You think I should cover that up?
That, yeah, because you're wearing your socks.
Good morning, everybody. It is 8:30, and so I don't want to waste any of your time this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing, welcome, I guess, is the first thing. We're going to be doing some beginner Blocksi tutorial this morning. It's really for those of you who really haven't yet got in there. Although if you have got in there and you have some specific questions, feel free and put it in the chat, and I'll make sure that I get to it this morning. And if I don't get to it right away, and you don't get your question answered, just let me know in the chat. Here's my question. I might not be able to stay the whole time, and I'll make sure that I follow up with you at some point through email or something, or through a personal hangout later. So as we get that going, let me also go ahead and put this in the chat. That is a link to sign in for today. We're going to be giving the attendance for today to the principals so that they know who has attended. So make sure that you fill that out, and I'll give we'll go maybe 2 or 3 minutes to give everyone a chance to fill that out.
Thank you.
Stephen, where is the link that you sent us? Where do we look for it?
It is inside of the chat, and I'm going to put it in there one more time because I think I saw someone come in. And on the top right of your Google Meet, there is some buttons up there. Excuse me. And one of those looks like a chat box. If you click on that chat box, you'll be able to get to the link. And thank you, Amanda. I see you putting it in there as people come in. I appreciate that. And then I think I saw Karen come in. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat one more time. That is our sign-in sheet for today.
Is there a certain way that you want us?
Still got a few people that are coming in, so I'm gonna hold off just for a minute or so to make sure everyone has a chance to get in, and then click on the link that is in the chat to for today's attendance.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. It has slowed down on people coming in, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me share this tab with you. Here's today's agenda. We are gonna first of all make sure that everyone knows how to connect their Google Classrooms to Blocksi, and I want to give you a little bit of time to make sure that that gets done. We're gonna kind of take a broad overview of the Blocksi features, even if they're not features that we're going to necessarily talk about during this introductory tutorial. I at least want to mention them so you have an idea of what you can do with this program. And then we're going to look at closing, blocking, sharing, and enforcing web pages. Really, the bulk of what Blocksi has to offer. And we went ahead and put in the Blocksi conferencing tool into this training as well, because that's kind of something that if you can do that on day one, and if you can close, and block and share, then you're going to be set. We do have an advanced Blocksi tutorial this afternoon where we're going to be going over things like the assessment tool, the insight reporting tool, and then creating personal filters and policies that fit the needs in your classroom. So I encourage you to come back this afternoon and attend that as well if you have some time this afternoon. So let's go ahead and get started. And let me change what I'm presenting. All right. If you could go ahead and join me, for those of you, well, for everyone actually, if you could go ahead and go to Blocksi.net. Blocksi.net. I'll go ahead and type that into the chat as well, so you can just click on it. So if you're completely unaware of what Blocksi is a management tool for teachers that they can use to really get some insight in what their kids are doing whenever they're on the computer. And so there's quite a few things that are involved with Blocksi. And again, we're just going to be kind of looking at the ones that if you can do this coming out of this training, then you're going to be set. You're going to be happy with Blocksi. For those people who have started using Blocksi, there's hiccups from time to time here and there that come up, but most teachers really do. They just swear by Blocksi because they're able to keep their students on task better and just get an idea of what's going on their screens whenever you're holding your classroom, or whenever the students are doing their asynchronous time as well. The first thing I'm going to do is click login up here at the top right. And I'm going to click on the teacher dashboard. And just to kind of point out a few things, there are a few different dashboards here. They're including a student dashboard, but students in our district do not need to click on this dashboard at any point. So we have pushed out a Google Chrome application onto their Chrome devices. And so as long as they're using a Chrome device and obviously, ideally, we want them to use the one that we have provided for them. But as long as they've logged into a Chromebook, then all the applications that we need for them for this to work should show up. But I'm going to go ahead and click on the teacher dashboard this morning. Now, if this is your first time logging in, you'll have to pick your account. Just make sure you obviously pick the account that ends in @carlsbadschools.net. And if you are if it's your very first time logging in, you'll probably have to give some permissions to this program in order for it to run, and then you'll just click allow on all of those things. So I'll give you about a minute to get logged in. Please type into the chat if you're having any issues getting logged into those things. And just in case I missed anyone coming in late, I go ahead and put the attendance sign-in sheet on the screen, or in the chat, sorry. Okay. So when you log in for the first time, you will not see what I see. This is because I'm an admin. I see really every classroom in the district. If there was a way for me to get rid of this, I would have done it yesterday. But it is what it is. And so this is your main dashboard, though, and your dashboard's probably going to be completely blank the first time you log in, and that's okay because we can bring in those items. Okay. So just looking at the top, you can see that there is a show and hide schedule, and that's not really something that we necessarily need to set up. It is one way that you can set your classes so that they'll kind of be ready for you at a certain time. But in the few times that I've used this, and it has been a little bit, so they might have done some work on it, but the few times that I've looked at this, it hasn't really worked out as well as I would have liked it to. So I really just don't mess with it too much right now. Excuse me. So what I do want you to do, especially if this is your first time doing this, I want you to click the Google Classroom button that is located in the top middle. And when you hover over it, it's going to say that you can import classes from Google Classroom. And it's going to ask you, whenever you click on that button, it's going to ask you which classrooms you would like to import. And you're going to select all of the classrooms where you have students inside of it. Now, if you are in an elementary school and only teach, one classroom, you might only have one classroom to pick from. If you're at if you're secondary, you might have 7, 8, 9 classrooms that you work with. And so make sure that you select all the ones that you want to bring in. And the only one I'm going to work on today is this homeroom. So I'm going to click OK. Now it's giving me an error because I already brought in that classroom, but I wanted to show you how that was done. Anyone, has anyone had any issues bringing in their classrooms with that tool? Nope. All right. All right, let me load my stuff back up. So before we go any further, because we're on this dashboard, I do want to share with you this conference recording button right here. We recommend you to record all of the conferences that you do with your students. I have been told that these conferences will only stay in this recording section for 3 days. Obviously, that's not true. This one's over a month old, but I think that's just kind of Blocksi's way of saying get them at the beginning. We're only guaranteeing them for 3 days, and I'm assuming that whenever we start hitting more of a size limit, then they might start deleting these. But they have stayed for quite a while, and so we do recommend those of recording every conference, excuse me, that you do with your students, and that's on your dashboard. So it's going to include conferences that take place across any of the classrooms that you own. Okay, so so I'm going to go down after you click that Google Classroom button and import your classes. You should see them right here, and you can reorganize these. So you can click and drag them into different spots. I have so many that it probably, it slowed everything down, but that's all right. So I'm going to go down to the classroom that I want to show off today, and it's Mr. Morgan's homeroom. And when you get here, you're going to see all of the students that are inside of your classroom. If there's any students that are missing right here, the first thing we want to try is to resync the classroom. If you just brought them in, it should have included them. But if for whatever reason you don't see a student that you should be seeing, then there's a button right up here that says Sync Classroom. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. My coworkers are being a little rowdy this morning. Sorry. All right. So so if you sync the Google Classroom and students are still not brought inside, that's a ticket issue. That's going to be something you're going to put in a Mohawk ticket on, and we'll kind of take a look at it and see what's going on. Okay. So I want to give you an overview of what the screen is. It's probably going to look like this the very first time you bring it in. But you do have a hamburger menu up at the top left. Although all of these things right up here, the filters and the policies, that's more of an advanced feature for Blocksi. If you never learn these, most people in the district, there's probably only a handful that have learned how to do these, and that's okay because we provide a filter and a policy from the very beginning. So we will give you a default policy that's pushed out to the district, so you don't have to mess with these. Having said that, if you do want to learn these, come to the training this afternoon and we'll talk about it, okay? But it's going to give you at the very top left, it's going to give you a little bit of information. It's going to give you the name of the classroom that you're in, and then it's going to give you a status color here. So it's red, so I know that this classroom is not running. The default that I have set for this classroom is 45 minutes. But the time, and we'll go over what the time actually means here in a couple minutes. The time doesn't really matter. If you only meet with your kids for 30 minutes and you put it to 45, that's okay. If you meet with your kids for 2 hours and only put 45 here, that's okay too, because you can always stop and start. We don't recommend pushing that number too high if you're in the secondary setting. Because that might actually mess with some classrooms that are taking place after your classroom finishes. But I'll get into that here in just a couple minutes, okay? This student policy right over here in the kind of the top left is going to, you can change that policy. Again, that's more of an advanced feature, but the student policy that we've pushed out is the default one that should be showing up right here. Okay, keeping going across the top. I see there's a groups button, kind of like 3 people icon. I wish this said groups because everything here says message all, it says assessment, there's an icon and a word that goes with it, except the groups feature. There's nothing that says groups. I don't know why they chose to do that, but so here's where you're going to find your groups. And then we also have a teachers button and a students button. So let's talk about the teachers button. If you have a co-teacher in your classroom, you can add that teacher to this to Blocksi. So if you have one other teacher that you work with, you can give them permission to be added as a secondary teacher. And from what I understand, when there's 2 teachers that are working with Blocksi, they can be viewing the same student's screen at the same time, as long as they're on the same Blocksi account. Okay. I wish they had a 3rd teacher and a 4th teacher and a 5th teacher that they have here, but as of today, you can only add 1 additional teacher. You can only add a 2nd teacher to your classroom. Okay, if you have extra teachers that that need access, you have a few options. You can invite them into your Google Classroom, and that will give them more broad access over being able to start and stop their own classroom. But the issue that's going to come up with that if they're not inside of your Blocksi classroom added right here, then if you start your classroom, they won't be able to start a classroom as well. So basically, kids can only have one classroom, be in one Blocksi classroom at a time. Only one teacher can be looking at their screen at a time. So we are limited a little bit with that. So, so if you do want a second teacher to be able to view what's going on, you're going to have to add them, not in Google, although you can add them in Google as well, but you're going to add them right here using the teacher button on the top, kind of the top right. The students button, you know, I said earlier, it's probably a ticket issue if you have a student that doesn't appear here and you've clicked the sync button and they're still not appearing here, and we do want you to put in a ticket for that if that does happen. But in the short term, you can also click the students button here and search for any student. So I can search for my son's name and invite him into this classroom, which I'm not going to do, but I can invite him into this Blocksi classroom, even if he's not in my Google Classroom. So this is kind of a short-term fix. We want to figure out the bigger issue if they're not there, but that would be a way that if you need to see a student screen, you can check it out. You can also put, you know, your student, if you're like me, you can include your student, your kid at home, and so that you can take a look and make sure that they're working on all the things that they should be doing whenever they're at school as well. Okay, so I want to let's go right here. And this next section is the it's where you can do some blocking. We'll get into the more specifics, but if you want to block an item from your kids, you can click on the block button and input the URL that you do not want them to go to. So if you're just done with your kids going to YouTube for the day, you can type in youtube.com here, and it will block that page. And if alternatively, if there's a website that you do want your students to go into, even if Blocksi would normally block this page, you can input that URL right here and click allow, and it kind of overrides the setting, the policy as it's set. So if YouTube is blocked, for example, but then I go in there and allow a specific YouTube video, that would still work. Okay. This checkbox here, just to explain it, it's going to do the entire domain. So what that means is it's going to, for example, if I block Google, it's going to block anything with Google. So it's going to block not just the Google search, but it's going to block classroom.google.com. It's going to block docs and drive.google.com. So basically, if the URL has Google in it, then it would block it. And so this domain, by checking this, you are blocking a wider variety of things, and that's good for many of the things that you need to block, in the sense that if you block the main page, they might be able to get around that by going to a secondary site on that domain. And so it's but at the same time, if you do want them to go to a certain page on that domain, you might be blocking a little bit too much with that. So you kind of have to know, you know, have an idea of what you want to block before you check or uncheck that box. And then you can get an idea going all the way to the far right of this little strip right here. You can get an idea of what you have blocked or allowed for that particular day so far. You can save and load certain lists that you've done in the past. So if you know that you're constantly having to block certain things and you don't want to create a policy or a filter right over here on the top left, you can save this list and go from there. Okay. Now, before we get into, I want to cover this first button here and not any of the other buttons. This first button here is your Start Classroom button. And so, and again, it gives me the 45-minute timer. And so I'm going to make sure that I log in under this student's account. And whenever I click start, it's going to show me what the kids are seeing on their screen. So I have 2 Chromebooks in front of me with kids that are logged in, and I'm going to kind of click around on a few things. And you can see that the screen is changing as I am as I'm scrolling around on the student side. So you can get an idea of exactly what the students are looking at on their screen. Obviously, it's not a live stream, so they might be. I'm zooming in on something over here, and I'm clicking, and it's going to take a few seconds to update on the actual on my Blocksi page right here, but it will catch itself up, and I'll be able to see what's going on. So you'll notice that the timer is coming down right here, and once it gets to 0, the classroom will end, and when it ends, the only thing that happens is you'll be able to, it'll stop with, it'll go back to like whenever you first came in here. Oh, something went wrong, of course. So let me try that one more time. It's going to keep giving me the error. So, which is unfortunate because what I was going to say next is, as I said, especially if you're in the secondary setting, teachers can only be, I should say it like this, kids can only be in one Blocksi, open Blocksi classroom at a time. So if I am in my first period classroom, and let's say I set that time to 2 hours, for example, if they're only supposed to be in that classroom for 1 hour, and I set it for 2 hours, the next teacher, if I don't stop this classroom, the next teacher won't be able to see what any of my kids are doing that are still in the classroom that I have open. So if Cave Student 2 goes from my classroom to Anita's classroom, then, and my classroom is still running, she won't be able to see what Cave Student's doing until I stop this classroom. Now they will get an error. They will know that another teacher is still, working with this student. But that teacher will have to stop their Blocksi classroom in order to basically release this student from their Blocksi classroom into the next. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It makes perfect sense whenever it actually happens inside of your classroom. But that's why we don't want this timer to go for too long if those kids have to go on to another classroom after you. Now, before I get into any of the other classrooms, I'm going to go ahead and go back into the Meet. You're getting the same error message when you try to stop a class. Is that right, Melissa? Yeah. So there was an error that was popping up last week as well, and it was different than this one. It was kind of spitting out some junk along the way. So I hope we don't run into that issue today. But as with excuse me, as with Cami, as with Google yesterday, if you tried to get into your Google Drive, we have about millions of little children in America that are starting this distance learning thing, and it's not going well for some companies, and so they're running into some hiccups. So if you do come across any issues like the one that we just saw, put in a ticket. Sometimes they'll clear it up by themselves pretty quickly. We had to contact Blocksi last week in order to get it cleared up, but so I hope we don't see that one again. But if you do come across those issues, just let us know, and we'll do what we can. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Are there any questions about general overview? What does Blocksi have to offer, or the first set of those buttons that we've talked about? I will resend the link. If you have not signed in this morning, I just put it into the chat one more time. Okay, so going on, if we're just going to talk about generally what are some of the things that you can do with these buttons. And so as you can see, I'm still kind of bouncing around with the student accounts, and I think it did stop my class because I don't see, it's not updating right now.
Like that.
So let's refresh the page and see what's going on.
Blocksi. Is that breakfast?
So, how's it going today?
We should have been at your house, huh?
Just you guys never run into these issues, right? Anytime? No. Orian's like, nope, never seen a problem in my life. Nope.
No, mine was the one who couldn't get into Google Drive to assign her assignments
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah.
You and probably the rest of Carlsbad, but it was this is the issue that we had the other day. So I hope it's not broken for us. We might have to postpone this. If you can't get into Blocksi, I can't teach you about Blocksi, I guess. Huh? It gave me that error from last week. I'm gonna try a few things over here on my end just to see if I can clear that up. It was working whenever I was going into it too, so we might be able to show off a couple things either way.
Moving far away? Are you moving far away? No. Oh, okay. Is this everybody?
The old saying, right? Anytime you use technology in your classes, be prepared for it not to work and have a backup plan. That doesn't really work with digital learning, right? It's kind of impossible to have a backup plan whenever the only way you can provide instruction is through digital means, right?
All right.
I'll show you what I'm doing. I am loading it up in a brand new tab without any cookies or anything like that attached to it, just to see if that clears it up. But it is not looking good. Nope. So let me stop sharing for 1 second. And try to find something that was sent to me. By the way, is it if anyone else is on Blocksi, are you getting the same error that I am, or is it just me? You're not getting the same. Oh, you're getting the same error. Orianne, you are not getting the same error. Refresh your page and see if you are.
Mine is fine.
Okay.
So you're welcome to log in as me, Stephen, if you need to use mine as a tool.
Okay, let me share this with you guys. Let me see if it's even useful. No, that's not good.
Nope, mine just got the error message.
Yeah. All right, so I can do this. Let me share this screen with you.
All right, we good? Yeah. Okay. So most of you have probably been using Cami. Yes, thumbs up.
Okay, so this is a Cami presentation we put together. So I won't be able to show off all the features that go along with it, but at least you'll get a look at whenever I'm looking at these buttons. Okay, so as I am sharing the screen, right? Yeah, I am. Okay, so starting across the top, and even this looks like it's out of date. There's no conferencing button here. The groups button is up at the top, but let's see. This is all the other things. Okay, so in fact, I'm going to use. No, we'll start with this one. Okay, so the share and enforce button that kind of has a lightning strike next to it. It appears here at the top, but it also appears right below. If you can see, right below this student's what they're looking at looks like on Amazon. That is going to be, you have the option of sharing and enforcing tabs. And by sharing, we mean opening it in addition to everything else that they might have open. So if I wanted to share Google Classroom with each of these students, it would, this person has like what, 8 or 9 tabs open. It'll open up a 10th tab, and it'll open up the additional tab on each of these students. Enforce, on the other hand, an enforce page is going to push out that, just like it did with sharing, but it's going to not close all the other tabs, but basically keep them in waiting, so that the only tab that that student can go onto is the ones that I have enforced. And you can enforce more than one page. So if you want to enforce Google Classroom and you want to enforce Kami, you have to kind of be careful with the way you enforce them. And I wish I could show you some examples of that today. But you kind of have to be careful because it might prevent them from going in different places inside of Google Classroom. But you can push out an article as an example where you want them to read that article and then maybe answer some questions inside of their Google account. So you would have them, you would enforce that page, let them read it, and then whenever they're done, you can unenforce that so that they can get their tabs back and keep working on what they were working on. So that's kind of the difference between the sharing and the enforcing. And you can enforce for an entire school, for an entire classroom, or individual students. So if you have a student who finishes early and you want them to work on something different, you can enforce a page just for them. Okay.
I don't want to get your hopes up, but mine's working again.
Hey, let's try. Hey, there we go.
You're making a copy, so that's why it's in there, so that the original one doesn't get messed up. So when you pull it,
Thank you for keeping for checking for me.
So once it's yours, you can do what you want with it. If you want to change, 80% of it,
let's try going into this
class. You want to take out the other teacher's videos and put your own videos.
So I have Cave Student 1, Cave Student 5. It looks like they are already already involved in another class. And as you can see, oops, something went wrong. Only one class can be active at a time. That's on my classes. That's not for the students, I guess. A similar error would pop up for Cave Student 1 and Cave Student 5 that says they are already involved in a different classroom.
You can do it so that way you can have it, or I can do it.
Let's see if it'll load.
There's a question, Steve.
Please. Let me see if I can find it here.
Lesson bank, and take something.
Let's see. Let me start from the top here. Showing the same. Is this meet being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. No, double check, but yes, it is being recorded. Do you have to type the URL when enforcing? You can copy and paste the URL. So now that it's back, we can do that. And yes, you are hearing Mandy, and you're hearing Anita. What's that? Oh, it could be Anita.
I'm gonna move this out.
Mandy's here too. So sorry.
I need to move it.
Okay, so here's what I mean by the share and enforce. So if I want to force them to go or share Google Classroom with them, I'm going to open up Google Classroom on my end, and I'm going to copy and paste this URL right here. And I'm going to go back into my Blocksi classroom, and I'm going to paste that URL. Now I'm given the option, I can share the page or I can enforce it. Whenever I share the page, you can see that an additional page opens up with Google Classroom, and it brings it to the front. So it does put that on top of everything else. So the kids do know if you have shared something with them. But it does keep everything else open. So if this student was really into ESPN and didn't want to go to my session, I would be able to see that, but I would also know that Google Classroom is still open on their end. Okay, and we'll get to closing and all that here in 1 minute. But alternatively, if I said, oh, you're not wanting to go to that classroom, you still wanted to open something else, this time I'm going to enforce it. I have to enforce it for a certain amount of time, but you can always close that early. So I'm going to go ahead and click confirm, and now you can see that everything else got closed, but except for the item that I sent out. So everything's closed, and so the only thing that they have open is Google Classroom. Now, if he were saying, "Oh, I really want to go to ESPN.com," I'm going to try that on this student's account, and let me make this a little bit bigger. It says you have permission to view these sites, and the only site that's on there is Google Classroom. So it limits them whenever you enforce something, what they can do. Now, here's kind of the issue that I mentioned before. Let's say they decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this work. And you provided them a link outside of Google Classroom for them to be working on. They're going to get blocked on that as well. So you have to be careful whenever you enforce something to make sure that you've included everything that they need to go to, that they might need to go to whenever you enforce that page. So I would be pretty careful with enforcing pages, especially what I would kind of limit it to just for myself is if I want them to read an article, or if I want them to really just kind of stay focused and go to Google, I might kind of send this as a warning of, hey, get there. But in that case, I would probably share it. I wouldn't use the enforce tool too often with the way that it's implemented here. If you come back later today, we'll go over the assessment page, and there is more you can do with that is similar to the enforcing, but you kind of have to be careful with that. So remember, I set the duration for this enforcing to 5 minutes, but I can stop it early. And whenever I do that, it does open up the pages that they were on prior to going there. One thing to kind of be careful about is if they are working on anything that doesn't save their work, and for as an example, Google Docs is going to save their work. They can have that closed, and it's going to come back up exactly the way that it was before. Google Forms, on the other hand, does not save work automatically. And so what it does is it puts that session or that website kind of in holding, and whenever it comes back up, it reloads it from the start. And so there's a good chance that they would lose their work if they're working on a Google form. So be careful about that. Continuing on, if with the share and enforce, you can share to everyone. You can also share to specific groups. So if you've set up specific groups, and we haven't talked about groups quite yet, but if you've set up specific groups, you can share or enforce pages to specific groups. So you can do it with an entire classroom, with specific groups, or with individual students along the way.
Like more than what they need.
Okay, here is where I can message all my students, and it's basically just a text message that pops up on their device. Oh, I'm typing on the wrong keyboard. I have 3 keyboards open, so I can select, just like before, I can select the entire class, an entire group, or individuals by clicking on underneath their name. But whenever I click send, it's going to be really difficult to see, but on the bottom right of their screens, you can't see it on here. On the bottom right of their screens, it says that there's a new message, and it says good morning. And whenever they click on that new message, then it opens it up another tab so that they can read it and respond back. I'm going to close this and respond back as a student, just to show you the way that it looks. See, I have my notifications. I had them off, so let me do it one more time. Well, it didn't give me a notification, but it does blink this yellow right here. So I can click on that yellow button and see what this student has told me. And I can click around to the other students as well and see what they've told me and the conversations that we've had. In addition to, well, we'll get to that here in 1 second. The assessment tab is not something that we're going to be talking about this morning. Again, that is more of an advanced tool. Just clicking on it, though, it looks a lot like the share and enforce. So here's the enforced URLs. So here's the whitelisted URLs. There's quite a few extra buttons involved with this one. And I do recommend you learning how to do the assessment. But if you don't know how to do it for the first month that you use Blocksi, you're not going to miss it, because most everything that you can do here, it can be done with the sharing and enforcing. This is just going to make it a little bit more powerful for you and frankly, a little bit, once you learn it, it's easier to use, but it's kind of a challenge to get started with. You can share your screen. So just like in a Google Meet, how I can go into presentation mode, I can share my screen as well. So if I want to share, let's see, screen 2 here with my students, it's going to open up my screen sharing on their device. So let me try that again. So you can see here's what's happening on my secondary screen, and this is what I've decided to share with my students. So I can do a tutorial directly from Blocksi if I wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. We'll talk about the conferencing tool here in 1 minute. I don't want to keep you guys for too much longer. So that's what you can do with the entire class at one time. So you can, we did not talk about this heads up feature because it's not really a feature you would use in a digital environment. This is awesome. This is an amazing tool for those of you for whenever students are back in your classroom, because you can click on the heads up button and give a duration and it closes everything, and they can't do anything on their device. They can't, I mean, this is all they see is heads up. There's no buttons that they can touch, nothing else that they can do. They can't even turn the thing off. So, so this is really great if you've got kids in there. But if you're doing a heads up and they're digital, well, that doesn't help them because they can't see what's going on. And then underneath the student page right here, you can see all of the different buttons that are mostly the same as the top for the classroom, except these will only alter this student's account. The only difference being that there's a save screenshot. So if this student just keeps on going to the ESPN page, I might save that screenshot. It's going to download it here in the bottom. And now I can share that screenshot with their parents and say, yeah, here's the website that they just kept going to. I can share and enforce the tab just like I did up there with one student. I can send a message to the one student. I can do a heads up to the one student and so forth, right? There is, so this student tried to go to facebook.com and it told me that that was blocked. So it's going to give you a red triangle whenever that pops up to know that they went to a page that they shouldn't have gone to. And so through all this, the only other feature of this that I really wanted to show you was the ability to just close different tabs. So if I am done with this ESPN and I click close, it's going to close it on their behalf. I love using this for my own son who likes to go to different websites whenever he should be, learning. No one's kid, I'm sure, is like that. But if this page just keeps on popping up, they're just not getting it, I can add it to the block list. And it's going to slow down right at that time. Okay. Oh, I'm getting a heads up. That's weird.
Let me go.
Add it to the block list. See if it does it that time.
You just start your slides just like any others.
It's thinking. So adding that to the block list will make it pop up right up here. It'll add to the block list up here, and it would close this tab up, and it would tell the student that it looks like we're getting that same error that we got before. So so it's going to block it so that they can't go to that for the rest of this classroom. Okay, let me go back in before we talk about conferencing, if we're able to talk about conferencing. I know some of you are here especially for that.
Good question, Lisa.
Okay, when you share your screen, can they hear your voice? I don't believe so. No, you would have to be in a conference with them in order for them to actually hear you. If you add to the block list, does that automatically block everyone else? Yes, it does. So it's going to add it to the classroom block list for that day. Okay, I think we got kicked out of it again, but we'll try one more time here.
It's just the truck and not that white background behind it. That usually gives me that type of image. If I want this truck to click to this red page, I'm gonna go Control K.
One thing I will share with you, it's a little bit outdated, but if you really are just if you're still kind of wrapping your head around all of what Blocksi has to offer, let me get the link. Teachable. There is a Blocksi Academy, and it goes over, as I said, some things that are here's a teacher course, here's an admin course. There's also like a parent course. They offer some tools. They offer some tools on the parent side, like that if you wanted Blocksi just set up for the kids in your household, not attached to our school district, there's a few things. But you might get something out of that on a few of the different things that it can be that Blocksi can do. That is also an outdated course, so it doesn't have conferencing or anything like that built into it. But if you're just kind of craving some more information on how it works, then that would be the best place to go. Oriane, I don't know if I haven't found a limit yet, but I haven't set up too many groups at once. I think you can keep creating groups though. I haven't been told of any. Whenever I've talked to Blocksi, they haven't said that there's a limit. It doesn't mean that there's not, but I haven't found it yet.
So, well, I asked because with conferencing, I don't know why I have to get really close to my screen to talk, but with conferencing, like if I want to pop in with one kid and say, hey, like,
Yeah.
can you come back, or hey, it asks for a group, so I have to do it.
Yes.
For group, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and that's an interesting idea of setting up a group for each individual student as well, and be able to pop in. Now, having said that, if you're just wanting to meet with an individual student, let me go back into Blocksi and see if it's going to let me. Nope. There is a.
So if you build in Cami.
No, yeah, you would have to do it in the one group like that. You don't have to do all. So if there is a limit, I don't like I said, I don't know if there is a limit yet. But if there is a limit, then you can have one student in a group and just remove them and add a different student to that group as needed. So you could have individual group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and have 5 different kids, and when you're done with those 5 kids, change the group so that there's 5 different kids involved there. So if you do run into a limit because you're trying to do one kid for every group, then that would kind of be the way to get around it, I guess. Let's see, my Google's or my kid's screen just went into heads up again. So let me see if it is resetting anything.
So that's why I like to build in slides. Any text.
So we had to reach out to them about this last week. So my guess is we'll have to do the same thing this week.
Later in Cami, still move it around. And so when I give it out to my kids, they're going to be able
yeah, Tanya, we'll definitely do that. And what I might do instead, because I know that class is going to run kind of long too. What we'll probably do in that, I might set up a video just with the conferencing, and send that out, or I might start the class a little bit earlier. So I think that class is supposed to start at 2:00, so I might start at 1:30, and go in a little bit early. So we might call it right here, since we can't really do much if Blocksi is acting up. Yeah, so let's go ahead and call it here so that I'm not keeping you guys for the rest of the day. And my Blocksi for advanced users starts at, I'm going to double check. I'm opening up my calendar right now. That starts at 2:00. So at 1:30, I will start with that. It definitely won't take longer than 30 minutes. So 30 minutes will give me plenty of time to get started, do the Blocksi conferencing, and then hop in with the advanced. But I encourage you to stay for the advanced session later on in the afternoon as well. So I really do apologize for all the issues. You guys have been experiencing them as we go through as well. Yes, Jody, and like I said, at 1:30, I'm gonna record that. But we'll probably we're trying to put together more videos throughout the week as we go through with some stuff, and we'll have some more information about that next week as well. Okay.
The one you can customize is your drive.
Yes, Brandy, it will be posted. I'll send out the link tomorrow. Whenever it has to basically process the video inside a drive. And so as soon as I get that, then I will share it out. Just like I shared, I'll shoot an email to all the schools and say, here's the video from yesterday. All right, so come back at 1:30. I apologize for the slowdown and for not getting to any questions that you might have had. If you have any additional questions, feel free to stay and ask them, and I'll make sure that I answer them. Even if I can't show them to you, I might be able to answer your question, in a satisfactory way. So other than that, I appreciate you guys. If you did not sign the sign-in sheet, please make sure that you do that. I've put it in the chat one more time. Brandy, if you are a super beginner, you might hold off on attending the meet, in the sense that I'm going to send out the video and show how to do it, how to do those things. So you might not want to watch it quite yet. But in 2 weeks' time, if you've been using it each day, you could, sorry, I read the other question there. If you might not be ready right away, but in 2 weeks you might feel better about the advanced features and want to hop in. And so, like I said, I'll be recording it so you can check that out. You don't have to be here this afternoon in order to view it later. Jody, yeah, we'll see what we can do so that we don't have two conferences going at the same time. Sorry about that.
I would go ahead and run the OCR. And it does have to like re-upload. And
Amanda, we're probably going to be doing our schedules at the same time. So ours has been 8:30 with my session, 10:30 with Anita's session, 1 o'clock with Anita's second session, and 2 o'clock with Anita's with my second session. We're probably going to keep those the same. Now, to answer your question though, in a better way than that, if you go to the CMS internal website, you can go down to the professional learning calendar, or actually the professional learning calendar, not viewing it in a good way. All right, so the PD calendar, or the professional, I don't know why it's professional learning, so PL calendar, but it's PD calendar anyways. You can see all of the items for the next at least 2 weeks. And then we're actually going to be adding some more probably by the end of this week. So there is a way for you to check out what the calendar is, what the schedule is. And this is going to include not just our schedules, not just Anita and my schedule. It's going to include like there's some West Ed trainings that appear on here as well, so that you kind of on Wednesdays you get a better idea of what offerings there are available to you.
Is it too early? Yeah.
Any other questions? If you're hanging out for me to do tricks, I'm not going to do tricks. I can juggle, but that's no one wants to see that.